afternoon, everyone. It is a great pleasure to open today's event and to welcome all of you joining us online. Thank you for accepting our invitation and for being with us on this occasion. My name is Luciana Cumino, and I am the Director of the Library Districts of Humanities, Social Sciences, Economics and Law, and the coordinator of the UNICA Blended Intensive Program for Librarians 2025. This first edition, dedicated to advancing open science and open access in academic libraries, takes place in Cagliari from September 29th to October the 3rd. It welcomes librarians from different countries across the European Union, offering a valuable opportunity for exchange and collaboration. I would like to thank the University of Cagliari and our organizing committee for making all of this possible. My colleagues are here all together, and I want to show you all the team who organized this event. Hello. The program opens with today's online event, a keynote lecture from Professor Paul Ayris, entitled UCL Press Celebrates its 10th anniversary. It is my honor to welcome our distinguished guest, Professor Ayris. He is Pro-Vice Provost of UCL Library Services, Chief Executive of UCL Press, and former chair of the LIBER Working Group on Citizen Science. He is internationally recognized as a leader in the fields of academic libraries, open access, and open science. In his career, he has played a key role in shaping the future of scholarly communication. We are delighted to have him with us today to share the insights and vision. I now give the floor to my dear colleague Valentina De Riso, librarian at the University of Cagliari, who will be chairing this session. Welcome, Valentina.
Thank you, Luciana, and good afternoon, everyone. I am Valentina De Riso. I am a librarian at the University of Cagliari and also a member of the organizing committee for the Blended Intensive Program 2025. It is an honor to introduce today's keynote lecture by Dr. Paul Ayris, who will tell us about the 8 pillars of open science and reflect on the future of scholarly communication. He will present UCL Press as a pioneering model of institutional open access publishing, looking back at its first decade and the results it has achieved. Following Dr. Ayris's lecture, we will have about 10 minutes for question and answer, so please make sure to type your questions or any comments you may have in the chat, and we will read them out loud. Also, please note that this keynote is being recorded. And without further ado, I will now hand over to Dr. Paul Ayris.
We can hear you, Mr. Ayris.
Okay now? No. You can hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I can hear him.
Very good. Thank you for the slides in presentation mode. So thank you very much for the invitation to come and talk to you this afternoon. I'm very sorry I couldn't be there in person. I thought at one stage it might be possible, but the diary does not allow it. So I'm very pleased to be able to join you virtually via Teams. What I'm going to do in the next 30 or so minutes is to talk about UCL Press, our open access university press, the first fully open access university press in the United Kingdom. We've been celebrating our 10th anniversary this year. I established the press in 2015 We didn't have a university press when I started, so I thought good chance to do something in the publishing line. And 10 years on, this is what we've managed to achieve. And that's what I'm going to talk about this afternoon. Next slide, please, Valentina. So these are the main topics I'm going to cover. I'm going to show how we see the press fitting into the European open science debate. I'm going to try and identify why UCL Press started in the first place. What was our objective? What did we think we could do in establishing the press? And then going to briefly describe the three publishing programs that we have: the monograph platform for research monographs, our journals portal, and our very exciting new mega journal, UCL Open Environment, which is a particular hallmark of our journal's activity. And then our growing open education platform, where we've started publishing open access textbooks for our students. And then I'm going to finish the talk with some general facts and figures and descriptions about how the press is performing, how it is perceived by our academic colleagues, particularly our authors, and then try and identify what the success criteria are for an institutional university press. How do you know that you're doing a good job? What are the key drivers that you should be looking at? Next slide, please. So these are the 8 pillars of open science as they're defined in Europe, and particularly in LERU, the League of European Research Universities. My university is a member of LERU, and I chaired the info group. It's my honor to chair the info group of chief librarians of these 23 research-intensive universities in Europe that come together in LERU. And we did a lot of work during the 10 years I was chair in working on open science, in identifying what the role of the library, what the role of other areas of the university were in the open science environment. And we came up with some very strong recommendations in our advice papers, all of which are publicly available on the LERU website, about what the role of the library in this general debate in these 8 areas of open science should be. I'm not going to talk about all these today. They don't all necessarily relate to the activity of the university press that I'm going to talk about. But next slide, please. These are the 2 pillars of open science that I think the UCL Open Access Press is directly connected with. What is the future of scholarly communication? What does the future look like? What does it hold for us in terms of new opportunities, new ways of doing things in the publishing space? And related to that, the educational landscape. How can the educational offering that universities make, how can this benefit by being associated with institutional open access publishing? So these are the 2 areas I'm going to concentrate on in the general European discussion and debate about what the implications of open science are. Next slide, please, Valentina. So at the very start in 2015, when I suggested to UCL that we might be able to do something in the publishing space, their first question was why? Why do you want to bother? Why is it important when there are so many commercial publishers available, and the UK in particular is awash, or it seems to be awash with commercial publishing opportunities. Why do you want to start a university press? And this was the answer that we came up with. This is what we identified after I'd done a series of interviews and meetings with the deans of faculty, our 11 deans of faculty, that UCL is research intensive. We expect to share the results of our research and of our teaching and education with the world. And that means making the products of our research, the outputs of our research, as widely available as possible and reducing barriers to their use. UCL has a vision that it wants to make a contribution to the world, to society, not only to the students that we enroll to come and study with us. We have a wider remit as well. Could you press return for the next slide, please? And there you'll see at the bottom of the screen the problem that we're trying to solve, that in the commercial publishing space, let's talk about monographs. That was the first program that I set up and is still the major program in the press's output. Research monograph sales using conventional sales over the bookshop counter sell very, very few copies. So for an average research monograph, typically if you sold 200 copies over the bookshop counter anywhere in the world during the lifetime of the book, you would say, or publishers would say, that's a good result. I said, I think that's an absolutely appalling result when you think that the academic may have spent years putting in effort and research and some of their own resources to compile this book, to publish it, and you're only selling 200 copies. Admittedly, some of those copies, not all of them, some of them will go to libraries and so have a wider circulation through the library network. But unless your library buys that book and you're a student in that institution, you will effectively be denied access to the title because you won't be able to afford to buy it yourself over the bookshop counter. The average cost of a hardback research monograph, around £40, £50. Students are not going to be, certainly in the UK, where they're paying fees and for accommodation from their own money. We don't have a very generous education system in the UK in that respect. They're not going to be buying monographs of £40 or £50 a copy over the bookshop counter because they simply can't afford it. So the current model of selling paper copy over the bookshop counter is not an effective way to disseminate research outputs in long-form monograph format. And in fact, I think I'd go further and say the current model is unsustainable and that it will implode because there simply isn't enough money in the system to maintain this type of model when the sales and the income that you're generating are so low, which is why, coming back to the box, the grey box at the top of the screen, which is why we thought that open access, removing the barrier of cost as a barrier to content, that we thought that's why that was a good solution for the press, for UCL to embrace, and was a contribution we could make to society as a whole. Next slide, please. So I tried to identify all the benefits of having a university press that was an open access press, and I had my series of meetings with the deans of faculty, and all these ideas came up in the discussion as possible benefits for a university, not just UCL, but any university in Europe, adopting the kind of model of an open access university press that I was talking about. But there was one of these 9 benefits received much more visibility than any of the others. And I wonder if you can I'll tell you which one it was, but have a think just for 10, 15 seconds. Which of these do you think was the most impactful that made people think, yes, that's the reason for investing monies in developing the press? Okay, Valentina, press the button and the next screen will come up, and which will tell us the answer. It was that one in the middle. The most decisive reason why UCL wanted to do this was the global impact that our research outputs, and indeed the research outputs of anyone who published with us, because we don't just publish UCL authors, we publish authors from all over the world who want to publish in open access in long form monograph form. Thinking back to that model, the conventional model with so few sales of monograph titles, the global impact of having a open access research monograph, which is freely available to anyone anywhere in the world with an internet connection. That's what convinced UCL that we could do something meaningful in this space. So that is the main motivation internally for investing in the infrastructure that is needed to deliver the press output. Next slide, please, Valentina. Okay, and these are the figures. 10 years on, we started in June 2015. We're now September 2025. These figures are slightly out of date. Of course, there are downloads all the time, so the figures are never completely up to date. When I measured these earlier in the summer, it was 18 million downloads for just over 350 titles. Compare that with the conventional sales figures of 200 copies per monograph. And it's an explosion. It completely revolutionizes the way in which research monographs can be disseminated. So at the beginning of the summer, it was 18.5 million. In fact, we've now passed the 20 million mark in June. Actually, exactly 10 years since we started, our download figures passed the 20 million mark, which was a fantastic result in 242 countries and territories around the world, because we map where the downloads are coming from. Every single country in the world has recorded a download of UCL Press titles. They've been downloaded in North Korea, which you might not expect would be the most obvious place for Western research to be downloaded. They've been downloaded in Antarctica. We've recorded downloads in Antarctica. They've also been downloaded in Vatican City in Rome, which is interesting because my university is a secular university and we don't teach theology or religious studies as such, not as a global phenomenon anyway, in UCL. So whatever they're reading in Vatican City, it isn't theology. And I could look at the logs to see what they are reading, but I've never found time to do that. The size of the circles here on the map show the number of downloads. I mean, the most countries doing the most downloading are the UK for obvious reasons, the United States of America, or North America anyway, here on the left-hand side, and a growing market in Asia, in China, and in India. And that's important to UCL because our two main recruitment markets for overseas postgraduates coming to UCL to study for master's degrees and doctoral degrees, they are from India and from China. So the press is supporting UCL's push to recruit students from countries where we particularly want to make an impact. Next slide, please, Valentina. These are the most downloaded books, or they were when I last did the measuring in April this year. I think they are still the most downloaded books, and easily the single most downloaded book is this one on the left-hand side, How the World Changed Social Media, excuse me, which is written by Professor Danny Miller, who's a professor of anthropology here in UCL, and was written with EU Horizon Europe grant funding. And it's been downloaded nearly a million times in 226 countries and territories around the world. So absolutely fantastic result in terms of dissemination and impact. It's also, so the digital copy is free. There's no charge for anyone to access that. You can log on to the UCL Press website and download any of these books for free. If you still want a paper copy, you can buy one. It's a transaction between you and the website, and we have a print-on-demand service, or we buy in a print-on-demand service. So within a couple of days of you ordering a paper copy online, a print-on-demand copy will be produced and will be mailed to you, to your desk, whichever address you've cited in your order. And we have found, we've measured the number of sales against the number of print sales. Do you remember I said earlier on 200 print copies was normally seen as a good result for books sold over the bookshop counter? We'll look at the sales figures here for these open access titles. They're all in the hundreds. So it hasn't dented the sales capacity of a press to make sales. But what it has done is add a fantastically more impactful layer for dissemination through having the free open access copy available for any user to look at. So if you hear people say, oh, well, open access monographs will kill print sales, that's nonsense. There's no evidence. The evidence from UCL Press and also from our sister publishing activity, where we have very strong links with Open Books Hong Kong, where they're trying a similar model with Hong Kong and mainland China, publishing research monographs in Chinese, and they're finding exactly the same, that high numbers of downloads for their titles do not affect sales figures for the print copies that the three consortial university presses in Hong Kong are producing as part of Open Books Hong Kong. So this is, I think, a growing realization that sales figures are not affected by having open access copies. Next slide, please, Valentina. So I've talked about monographs. I'll talk a little bit about journals. The press publishes 14 journals, and here they are listed on the screen here. Some have transferred from commercial publishers. Some have started from scratch as an open access journal, while the press, after the press had been formed. So they are new developments in the UCL publishing network. But we do encourage journals to flip into open access if they're published previously with commercial publishers, if they want to move to a fully open access environment. And as I say, we currently have 14 journals on our list at the moment. Next slide, please. And these are the download figures for the journals. just over 8 million downloads when, again, I looked at the figures and created these slides earlier in the summer. 18 million downloads for the monographs, 8 million downloads for the journals. Not a bad result for the journals. The journals is a very difficult, challenging market in which to make open access work if you're an institutional publisher, because there is so much academic acceptance of the commercial model, particularly in STM, where there are very high access figures and citation figures. Introducing open access journal titles into that type of market is quite a challenge for a university to do. It's easier in the research monograph space because, as I tried to show, the current model, commercial model, has already broken down. So there was a vacuum there. That's not true in the journal space. It's a very competitive space. So this 8 million download figure for 14 journals is very encouraging as a start, as we try to see how we move from a commercial subscription big deal model for journals to a fully open access model. And again, for journals, the top 3 downloading countries are the USA, China. Very pleased to see China there in the list, but given the enormous amount of money that they're putting into developing their own research infrastructure, and the UK. Next slide, please, Valentina. Okay, I talked earlier on about a big new development in the journal space, and this is it. It's called UCL Open Environment. If you could hit return again, Valentina. And again. Here we go. So this is what the journal looks like on the left-hand side, and there are some drivers and indicators on what we're doing and why we did it on the right-hand side. It's a new publishing model. It's bringing together articles on the environment from whatever discipline. That's why it's called a mega journal, because there are many different themes related to the environment, which in an normal publishing environment would have their own separate journal title. But here in the mega journal, they're all brought together under one roof, the UCL Open Environment roof. So the politics for environmental studies, finances, global warming, social issues, which in the commercial publishing space will all have separate journals. Here, UCL Open Environment will embrace all those topics and enable you to publish under this one cover on any aspect of the environment, as long as it is a true offshoot of environmental studies. So that's one of the new things about the mega journal model that we're testing. We're also looking at transparency. So we have a fully open peer review model here, and I'm going to show you in a minute what the workflow looks like and where the peer review sits in. But there is open peer review, and that means that an article, if it's going to be published, would normally have at least 2 positive peer review reports. The peer review reports are themselves published and publicly available, and the reviewers are named in the reviews. And we believe that model, publishing the peer review report and naming the peer reviewer, leads to better, more stable peer review, because the peer reviewer knows that they have to justify the points that they're making, and the author is perfectly entitled to respond to the peer review in public with a response. The author would then be invited to modify the article in line with the peer review comments, and it would go through various versions. Each version is available for scrutiny in the public on a preprint server, and only when it's past the peer review stage is it then passed to the published workflow and appears in the Open Environment Journal as a published journal. And if you move on to the next slide, please, Valentina. We see. So this is how the workflow works. You have the author here on the left-hand side submitting an article. It will go to the journal editor. The editor will do a very preliminary review to make sure it meets certain standards, and it will then pass into the middle here to the open peer review stage, and that could be an iterative process. The editor will nominate or receive suggestions for peer reviewers. The peer reviewers will do the peer review and report. The author will be invited to modify the journal article that they're producing. They will all sit on a green preprint server immediately, and they won't be taken down. When it's gone through the peer review process here on the right-hand side, it then goes to be published as a published output in the UCL Open Environment platform, and it's labeled in the metadata as published. But the green preprint versions will still be available, and we don't take those down from the preprint server because we think they're part of the route for transparency is to see how the article has evolved through the peer review process until you get to the final version. In a commercial publishing world, you only see the final version. You don't see all the work that's gone into it beforehand. Here in the mega journal model, you see everything, and everything is publicly available for scrutiny. Next slide, please, Valentina. So these were the aims that we set ourselves. Rapid publication, that workflow, we want to go as quickly as possible. Open peer review, interdisciplinary collaboration. We try and reduce the admin to make it a smooth publishing process. And because everything is open and we don't charge article processing charges, it's a true example. For all our journals, not just the mega journal, but for all our journals, they're all Diamond OA journals. You can have inclusive publishing because you removed any kind of cost or APC payment as a barrier to people publishing with you. Next slide, please. We also maintain OJS, Open Journal System, to enable students to publish their own journals. These aren't UCL Press outputs per se. They're not produced by the press, but we train student societies and student groupings within the faculties to use OJS so they can maintain their own postgraduate journals. And we currently have 8 on the cards. We provide the support the software, but it's up to the student society or the faculty to run the journal, to manage the peer review, and to ensure that the published outputs appear on time. Very popular with postgraduate societies, particularly young, early career, well, not necessarily young, but early career researchers who want to start making their mark in the field. Student journals, publishing in them or running them would be one of the ways they would start their involvement with academic publishing. Next, please, Valentina. And our third platform is Open Educational Textbooks. It was a pilot version, a program that we ran for 2 years. I've just made this a permanent part of the UCL Press publishing output. It was stimulated by the COVID-19 pandemic, where all the libraries were closed. and students didn't have access to textbooks which are on the shelves because under government regulations, all the public institutions were closed down. So I thought, well, when we come out of this pandemic, we've got to have an answer to this problem. And the answer is to produce your own textbooks with your academic lecturers are the authors of the textbooks. And this is what we're doing with the textbook program. We are trying to create, or we have managed to create, an alternative route for disseminating educational research outputs. And these sit on the Open Educational repository and are freely available as open access textbooks. And this is the first textbook that we produced. It's from our master's program on burns and plastic surgery from our medical school in one of the teaching hospitals that are part of the UCL medical school infrastructure, and is highly and the author wanted it to be an open access textbook. I asked him at the book launch, I'm very glad you published with us, but why did you choose us? You could have gone anywhere where any commercial publisher would have taken your book and sold it, and you would get royalties for from the sales. UCL Press doesn't pay royalties. It's one of the first things we tell our authors. We'd love to have you on board, but there are no royalties. We don't pay royalties. You get the benefit of extra visibility and downloads, but no financial reward as such. And our author said, "Well, I'm not interested in money. I just want the new techniques and the surgery that we've been developing at the Royal Free at Hampstead, which is the teaching hospital where this work is taking place." He said, "I want this to be available in developing countries where they couldn't afford to buy commercial copies of textbooks, and their medical schools couldn't afford the multiple copies that would be required for every student to have access to them. Open access is the answer to that, and that's inclusive publishing. That one of the aims of the press that I stated earlier. So the author wasn't interested in financial gain, was interested in sharing knowledge with the rest of the world, which is why he chose UCL Press. In fact, his supervisor is just publishing their second textbook with us at the moment. Next slide, please, Valentina. So what are the motives? Why would you write an open access textbook? I've identified a number of reasons. It reduces the cost to the student of having to buy textbooks, and of universities having to buy multiple copies of textbooks, because you have one copy freely available on the textbook platform. And for early career researchers, it's a very good way of making your mark in the publishing landscape in your own particular subject area, getting very good download figures and sales figures too for those who where there are sales. Some universities still want to buy paper copies, even though there's a digital copy freely available. That would enhance your professional reputation early in your career, something you can quote in your appraisal documentation or your job applications for promotion, or if you want to move eventually to another university. Next slide, please, Valentina. We also do other things as well. We do consultancy, and we offer publishing services to other universities who don't want to set up their own presses, but would like to get involved with the open access monograph publishing. And so we have a partner with Dublin City University in the Republic of Ireland, where they maintain Dublin City University Press as an imprint, but all the technical production work is done by UCL Press under license from DCU, and they pay us for that partnership. And that's a model that is open to other universities as well if they want to follow up. Next slide, please, Valentina. Let's quickly look at some facts and figures. How many staff have I got to do all this work? Well, we have 13 FTEs, 13 members of staff, well, full-time equivalents. They all have professional publishing backgrounds. Not one of them is a librarian. I didn't want librarians. I'm a librarian, not a publisher by training. I didn't want librarians doing publishing work, and I didn't want publishers doing library work. So I wanted the two to meet together. And I think that is the secret of the success of the press, that we have the library, led by me, advising on open access policies and procedures. And then we have professional publishers doing the actual publishing and building the publishing infrastructure on the principles of open access that the library is sharing with the publisher. So it's really a great partnership. Next slide, please, Valentina. Some indication of charges and costs. As I say, most of the publishing is free at point of use, so it's diamond open access in that sense. We don't charge our own academics to publish monographs with us. We don't charge any of the journals, APCs, for publishing with us. The textbook program is free. The only area where we do charge is if we're publishing research monographs for non-UCL authors. And there, UCL feels that there should be a contribution by the university or the university member outside UCL who wants to publish with us, and that shouldn't be a charge on UCL itself. So most of those, for a typical monograph, 120,000 words, we charge £7,500 sterling to publish with us. Most authors who come with research monographs would be able to fund that out of their, if they're funded by a research funder or by their university, those would be the sources for that funding. We do have a waiver program, so we allow 6 non-UCL authors to publish with us for free every year if they really can't afford the BPC. I would eventually like to get rid of all the BPCs, but at the moment the finances just don't allow me to do that. So I am looking at ways for how to raise more income so that we can try and make everything a diamond open access output. Next slide, please. So I draw this to a close. What are our success criteria? Well, I've listed them here on the left-hand side. Quality of the book reviews is important. We do collect book reviews. Our books are reviewed in the normal book review process by journals and by other publishers. We do collect those book reviews, and that's a great source of inspiration to us when we get positive reviews. I've got some examples at the end of the slide pack here. And academic buy-in by UCL authors and by UCL staff and students. We do we collect feedback from our authors once they've been through the authoring process with us and publish their outputs. And we also measure the strength of engagement from UCL staff and students by the number of proposals we get coming in on the book program, for example, of people who want to publish with us. Next slide, please. We tried to make open access publishing visible in all our UCL strategies. So here on the left-hand side, I've listed the strategies where I have worked with equivalent colleagues elsewhere in the university. In our academic careers framework here, the top of the screen. We've made it mandatory for all publications produced by UCL researchers to have an open access version from grade 7, which is a junior lecturer grade, right through to grade 10, which is professorial grade. It's mandatory that there should be an open access version of your output. We've written some case studies here on how you incorporate open access publishing in your annual appraisal, how you can show the benefits that you're bringing to the subject and to UCL by publishing in open access. And you can also use the download statistics, as I say, when you're applying for promotion or whether you want another role in another university, you can show the impact that you're making. Next slide, please. Come to the end here. I said book reviews are very important to us. We do collect book reviews from journals and from publishers. And these are just 3 examples of very positive book reviews that we have received for just 3 of our titles. We do this for every title that we publish. Next slide, please, Valentina. I said we measured academic buy-in by the number of proposals. So here, for the research monograph program, I've listed the number of proposals we get each year and our target in terms of the number we're able to publish. With the current staffing, we can manage to publish around 65 research monographs a year. We're getting that number of proposals, so the number of proposals and the target for publishing are about right. But look how far ahead we're planning. We're planning 2 years ahead. So if you can't publish now with us before 2020, the academic year 2027, 2028, because it's such a popular program that people want to get in early, and we're full to capacity until 2027, 28. Next slide, please, so we can finish off. Again, all feedback, just a selection of resumes from authors who have published with us, and all universally enthusiastic about the model and the experience they've had with the press. Next, please. And this is my final slide. What are my plans for the press for the next 3 years? So I've identified 9 goals that I want to achieve. I want to double the download figures for journals, for research monographs, and for textbooks. I want to do more advocacy, which is why I'm so pleased to be here today. I want to do more advocacy internationally for OA publishing and encourage other universities to jump on this bandwagon and join us in this realistic alternative to commercial publishing. And I'm particularly interested in building publishing relations with China. We have good links with Hong Kong, and China, a massive potential contributor to open science, and through the Chinese Academy of Sciences, looking at open science as a realistic model to develop their own research infrastructure and outputs. So I think there should be a link between Europe and China in this endeavor, and that's what I'm trying to build at the moment. So thank you very much for listening. If you have been listening, we have about 5-10 minutes left for questions and comments, and I'm very happy to hear any points that you might have. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Ayris, for such an inspiring and insightful lecture. So yeah, we're now opening the floor for questions. So if you have any questions, please do type them in the chat and we'll read them out loud. And while we wait for questions, I'm just going to ask one of my own. Oh, actually, we do have a question.
You do?
Yes, we do have a question. So Rebecca Krenz asks, well, she thanks you for a highly informative presentation and asks, can you tell me more about the innovative peer review you mentioned? Who takes part in the review process? How are people elected to the board? By whom? And how do you guarantee openness?
Okay, so several questions there. The mega journal, UCL Open and Environment, has an editor-in-chief, and it's the editor-in-chief who chooses who should undertake the peer review. We have a board. There is a board supporting Open Environment because it is a mega journal and covering all aspects of environmental studies. There are about 50 people on the board from around the world in looking at the different aspects: politics, health, geography, history. All these are aspects of environmental studies. They're appointed by the editor-in-chief, who is an academic, who is giving his or her time to be the editor-in-chief. They would select how the peer reviewers are invited to give peer reviews. How are people elected to the board? Again, the editor-in-chief will talk to existing board members and identify experts around the world that we can approach and ask if they will join us. How do we guarantee openness? It's a condition of publishing with us. If you don't accept the model that we have developed, then your article wouldn't be accepted for peer review, nor would you be invited to be a board member if you didn't sign on the dotted line to embrace the principles that we've established.
Thank you for your answer. We do have another question
Sure.
from Laura Corda. So she asks, do you publish your content in PDF or EPUB format? And do you license them under Creative Commons?
Yes, good questions. We publish the research monographs in particular are published in PDF format because that was the most popular format with academics when they were downloading. We did originally try to have alternative formats available as well, where you could do more interesting things with software tools, but they weren't heavily used by academics in the research space. They were wedded to a more traditional PDF version. So the monographs are available in PDF. Are they licensed under Creative Commons? Yes, they are. It's up to the author to decide what sort of Creative Commons license to choose. We recommend CC by NC. NC is important because under a CC by license, it's perfectly possible for a rogue publisher to take your book, reformat it, and republish it. So that's a rather unfortunate practice. So you stop that by recommending a CC by NC license to the author, and practically every author who we publish with accepts our advice and publishes under CC by NC.
Thank you. I have a question as well,
Sure.
and it's, do you think the UCL model could be replicated in smaller universities? And I know you talked about the quality of book reviews as a criterion for success, but would you say that's the most important one, or are there other key factors that you would say play an important role, especially in small universities?
Well, okay. Good questions. The model will work in smaller universities. I think the biggest question is, for a smaller university, is it possible to identify the staff and the funding to maintain the infrastructure? So I mean technical infrastructure and staff numbers. There are two ways of doing that. You can do what Dublin City University did, which is enter into an agreement with us where we do their publishing, but they have local committees that manage the peer review process and the commissioning of books. They do all that themselves with existing staff, library staff and academic staff. They then hand over the production to UCL Press and publish under a Dublin City University imprint, and they pay us to do that. And that's open to other universities who want to try that model if they can't do it themselves or don't feel they're able to do it themselves. Another model which I've strongly recommended, but is actually the model that my colleague Ben Meunier in Hong Kong has adopted. There are 8 public universities in Hong Kong. There are 3 university presses in those 8 universities. Now, those 3 universities, Ben has brought together, and they are sharing the costs of publishing Open Books Hong Kong. I was there earlier in the year. In fact, I'm going again at the end of the month to see how their journal platform develops, because they're launching a journal platform at the end of the year. Smaller universities could do this consortially through their library consortia or through working with trusted partners and share the costs. That would be another model. And again, the UCL Press could help by doing consultancy. If you asked us to do that, it would be a fee-based service, but we could present a model to you how, with your trusted partners, if you identified who you wanted to work with, how the UCL Press model might work in a consortial environment. So yes, the answer is yes, but there would need to be, whichever of those 2 options you chose, there would need to be some development of thinking and of workflows in order to make them work. But it's not impossible. If I can just come back, Dagmar has put another question in the chat. When you use the CC by NC license, do authors keep the copyright or does the publisher? Publisher never keeps the copyright. UCL policy is that copyright in research outputs and textbooks remains with the author, and the author is the copyright owner. We have a non-exclusive license to publish for them.
Thank you. We're close to ending our session, but we have time for one more question if it comes through. So we'll just wait for a few moments.
Well, perhaps I could ask a question, Valentina. Do you have a university press? Have you ever thought of having a university press? Would you like to have a university press?
Yes, we do have a university press, Unica Press.
È collegato, sì.
And yes, So our colleague, Anna Laura, if you want to intervene, as she manages this, so she might be able to tell us more about it. Maybe she's not there at this moment.
Perhaps not.
She's shy.
Okay.
Microphone not
yes,
working.
she's here.
Oh dear.
Yes. So maybe this is a topic for another meeting.
Absolutely, we'd be very happy to have a follow-up meeting with your press, just to talk through in a bit more detail some of the things. Anna Laura will have noticed straight away that I'm not a publisher. I'm an academic. My wonderful head of publishing, Laura Spiker, is the publisher, but it's me giving the talk today.
So Anna Laura also said that it was very interesting to meet you, and yes, she would enjoy a follow-up. And if we don't have any more questions, I would say that this concludes our keynote session. And on behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to warmly thank Dr. P Ayris for sharing his expertise with us today. And thank you all of you who joined us for this session, and thank you for your questions and contributions. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and goodbye.
Goodbye. We wait the participant of BIP Library Unica Intensive Program as soon at the end of the month. So see you soon. Abbandonato.